And one last look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center. Happy to report once again, no accidents on the roadway as of right now. Everything looking pretty clean and green for your ride in on this Thursday morning. Going to be a nice day, high of 87 with plenty of sunshine. High tomorrow going to be 88 with some cloud cover. And then Saturdays we get into the weekend, 84 with some thunderstorms in the afternoon. Again, that's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center on the early game. Nine o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here, navigating through the opening day of the month of May. You know, Jack, if I would have had the foresight, I would have queued up Justin Timberlake and hit the "It's Gonna Be May" thing that is a meme every single year on this exact day, but didn't think about that this morning, unfortunately.
Dang, man, that would have been good. I didn't think about that either, to be honest. And honestly, there's so many memes out there, good ones. That is a good one, but I didn't even think of that one. So, but did it feel like to you April was like super long? Because like to me, I know it's only 30 days, but like for whatever reason, like the being on the road every single weekend, it felt like, man, it felt like the longest month ever.
Well, and that's kind of the funny thing is, especially as the sports calendar slows down a little bit, you can kind of feel that way. For perspective, at the beginning of April, so that first weekend of April, the 5th through the 7th was Final Four weekend. And I don't know about you, but it feels like the Final Four was like 3 months ago now.
Oh, dude, totally. Like, you got the Final Four. I think this past month I went to Mississippi State,
yep,
A&M, and then there was the spring game, which the spring game feels like ages ago.
That's crazy, too. It does feel like we're not even 2 weeks removed from the spring game, and that feels like a month ago.
Dude, I'm telling you, I don't know what it was, but it feels like forever ago. Now, I will say, the saying is what? That April showers will bring May flowers?
Yeah.
To be honest, did we even get much rain at all this past month? Because I really don't feel like we did.
There was like a couple of days where it rained pretty hard that I remember, but it wasn't like a consistent thing. You know what I mean?
So I think we kind of lucked out in that way. But, man, that really was such a long month. And I think this month might be even longer, just considering, like, Memorial Day is like 30 days from now. And
yeah,
by the time we get there, it's going to be like ages ago.
And the unfortunate part is we go into this month with the only two sports remaining, baseball and softball, but baseball being the primary one in a lot of people's minds, there's not a lot to be excited about. And we talked about this yesterday. They've got to win 8 out of the last 9 or go on a miracle run in Hoover. You're currently without your top 2 hitters. You'll get Nathan Hall back, but you wonder what kind of shape he's going to be in going forward. You may have seen the last of Ethan Petrie. Your pitching's been all over the place. Like, there's nothing to be excited about that this team's going to do anything special in the month of May to get themselves into being able to play in the month of June.
But there is a good softball team out there.
There is.
And
yeah.
Yeah, they have a huge series against Alabama starting tonight. I'll actually be there for Game 1, which will be a lot of fun covering it. But, yeah, I mean, they got a chance to host a regional and do some things that haven't been done in Gamecock softball, program history in such a long time here. So from that standpoint, it'll be exciting. And it's good to see that people have actually, like, turned out to the stadium. And I know baseball, it's kind of helped that baseball hasn't been very good this year, so you can put a little bit more focus onto softball. But, yeah, I mean, look, baseball has no doubt been disappointing, but it's good to see that softball is heading in the right direction and becoming a really fun team to watch.
We'll have to instill our hope and fun for the summertime into them, because, again, baseball is not going to be playing for that much longer. So hopefully Coach Chastain Woodard's team will be able to go on a deep run, and they'll keep us engaged and entertained. Though, I mean, God, next week the SEC tournament up there and over there in Athens, I mean, you want to talk about a gauntlet. The SEC softball is a gauntlet, and they're going to have to go through that next week. They're obviously going to be in the NCAA tournament, but they're one of those teams that can't afford too many more losses in terms of being in position for one of those national seeds. Number 10 right now, obviously don't want to fall any farther than that. If you can win a little bit here, get the series win against Alabama and go on a good run in the SEC tournament, you might be able to bump up into one of those coveted top 8 seeds, but we'll see what happens.
No, you're totally right. Like, you probably need to win the series this weekend and then go into Athens next week. And I don't think you have to go on a deep run to lock down a national seed, but definitely win a game or two. And shoot, honestly, I mean, who knows who's going to win this whole tournament? It's really going to be a crapshoot, to be honest, just because it's such a tough conference. But I can see South Carolina going on a little bit of a run here and helping solidify their spot.
Well, we will keep a close eye on softball as that unfolds over the course of the next couple weeks. But yesterday we ended the month of April with something pretty cool, with Dawn Staley finally getting her statue unveiled, which we'll get into in just a moment. But it is 9 o'clock.
Time to get hyped.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm.
Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. Yesterday it was just a couple blocks from here where Dawn Staley finally got her statue unveiled, and a long-awaited thing. It's been sitting there covered up with a tarp for God knows how long it feels like, but cool to see it finally get unveiled yesterday.
Yeah, no, definitely very cool. And I like the statue design that they did. I thought that was very cool how they have her up on the ladder and she's cutting down the net and stuff. And that's very, very fitting. And, I just love it. I love the way it looks. And I figure at some point she'd be getting a statue, obviously. But it's good. It's good to see that she's got her own. And so it's not near, because I wasn't on at the ceremony yesterday, but seeing on Twitter and stuff. So what? It looks to be near the Hilton Hotel, right across the street from the convention center there.
Yeah, it's right over there by the State House. It's at the intersection of Senate and I can't remember the other street, but it's not right in front of Colonial Life like Asia's
Yeah, it's
is.
kind of down the block a little bit, right?
Yeah, but again, a good place for it. Obviously, kind of being a more centralized location of the city itself. And again, something people are going to be able to pass by and see for many, many years to come, which is obviously cool. I was thinking about this, that as this basketball program continues to have a lot of success, they're going to probably be building a lot more statues. So I do wonder, I mean, do you just kind of create a bank of statues in front of Colonial Life Arena with your players? Like how does this go as we think about Aaliyah Boston, as we think about some of these other great players that potentially be having statues here in the future?
See, that's the thing, is that because they're so successful, they deserve a lot of statues. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be making more statues for this team, because obviously you mentioned it. Aaliyah Boston really does deserve one. I think she's probably next up on this list, if I'm being honest. But then again, you could say the same for the 38-0 team. Like there needs to be something dedicated to them, I would say too. There's a lot of overcrowded with statues. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can.
Yeah.
And they have to probably be in scale to what Asia Wilson's is, because that thing is that's probably the biggest statue I think I've ever seen. That thing is massive.
That is an interesting debate, because earning a statue is something that should be very, very hard to do. And again, I don't think there's one player from the 38-0 team that you would give it to necessarily. And I don't know if as time goes on, do you just add the list of accomplishments onto Dawn's statue? Like, okay, then and I don't have all the schematics of what's on it right now, but do you just continue to add, hey, another national championship, another Final Four, SEC, and all that kind of stuff, to where you're kind of honoring teams as a whole there, because Dawn's always presiding over them? And again, Leah Boston, you make a strong case for her potentially getting one herself, but you are right. It doesn't need to be something that, okay, every 2 or 3 years, here comes another statue and another statue to where there's 12 out there, at some point down the line, because then I think it takes the significance and specialness away from it, because again, it's such a rare thing and a hard thing to accomplish that it should be something that only happens very sporadically. But we'll see there. But again, very cool to see Dawn finally get that honoring over there, and it makes you wonder, because as time goes along, and look, there's gonna be tons more. Go ahead.
No, sorry, my connection was kind of not working there for a second. But like I said, I just think it's something that it's kind of like retired numbers. You do it for specific people that, number one, I think you have to have played at South Carolina for 4 years. I think that's a given.
As much as we love, the pow pows and whatever that came in and had an effect in a year or two, I do think a 4-year player definitely is at least the minimum standard there.
Think of it like the requirements that are so rigorous. I for the retiring of the jerseys for South Carolina football, women's basketball, like any sport, to get your jersey retired, there's a list of requirements. I think you kind of need that for any sport if you're gonna build a statue, right? And I think for women's basketball, there's so many different avenues you could go with this, but I think right now having Asia and Dawn, those are the two obvious ones that you should have, no doubt. I would say Aaliyah Boston should be next, but again, you can make the case for so many different ways to go. And again, going back to the 38-0, I don't know how exactly you would do it. You could do something along the lines of just trying to think of an example here of a multiple person statue out in College Station, out in front of Kyle Field. They have the 12th man statue with all the fans kind of lined up doing the yells and stuff. You could maybe do the same thing with them all lined up when they do Forever to Thee. I'm trying to think of a scenario in which you could kind of do something like that. But I mean, there's so many ways you can go. It's just you don't want it to become too cluttered. You know what I mean?
Honestly, you could just literally have a statue of the numbers 38-0 out there, and then just put at the bottom the list of players that were on that team or something along those lines. I feel like that would be fitting.
Yeah, but I think it's something that with statues, Asia got hers a few years ago. Dawn obviously just got hers yesterday. You don't want it to. I don't think you want it to become a year after thing where you're just getting statues and statues and statues. I mean, it's great, but I think spread it out over time, and it becomes a little bit more worthwhile as opposed to we just give out statues seemingly every other year.
I think this speaks volumes to where this program's at. This is a really good problem to have. When you're talking about, we don't want to give too many players statues. That means that many players have come in and had a profound effect on your program. Again, Aaliyah Boston speaks for herself. I'm looking at somebody like Joyce Edwards, who, again, only a freshman, but a very successful freshman season. What's she going to be after 4 years? Who knows? Could she be even better? Asia Wilson said on the broadcast a while back, hey, she's better than I was at this point in time, so there's no telling what she's going to accomplish in this program over the next couple of years, where she may become undeniable to want a statue too. But it's a good problem to have when you're having a debate. Well, we can't give away too many of these things, but there are a lot of viable candidates for it.
I like how they're spreading them out, though, seemingly around Columbia. Not putting Dawn's. I think Dawn's should be right in front of CLA, but the spot they put it right down the block, I think that works. And if that's kind of the strategy they go with, putting them kind of in the area of CLA, then I think we can get behind the idea of putting more out there. But again, you don't want them all centralized right in front of Colonial Life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And look, there's a lot of areas around the city where you can spread these things out. And look, I hope over time we're talking about football and baseball and tons of other sports warranting statues as well, to where these things are just popping up on every corner. You know what I mean? That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I've seen people throw around the idea of having Steve Spurrier get his own statue and stuff. I think I'm down for the idea, but we'll see. I mean, George Rogers is the only one with a statue outside of the football stadium right now. So hopefully we do get to that point, though.
The debate with Spurrier is his greatest accomplishments didn't come here, though. He did a lot for South Carolina, but he obviously had more success. He has a statue of Florida, right?
Yeah, I think he does, but I think it's as a player though, because he won the Heisman Trophy there.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting debate. He was there, by the way. Him and his wife were there.
Yeah,
watching
I saw that.
Dawn's trophy or a statue unveiling, which I thought was was pretty cool. So a lot of good vibes, a lot of happy times in Columbia yesterday on that statue unveiling. Where things were not quite as joyous, or don't continue to be quite as joyous, is Chapel Hill. Because once again, we have more developments in the ongoing saga of Bill Belichick and his girlfriend, Jordan Hill. We'll get into that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Thursday on The Game. Jack, we have more updates coming out of Chapel Hill. Seems like every single day. Do you think, like, the powers that be at North Carolina just wake up every single morning praying that nothing new develops from this ongoing saga? Well, if that is the case, they've been very disappointed this week.
Oh yeah, Bubba Cunningham wakes up every single day in his cut off sleeves, and he just wakes up hoping, man, that Jordan Hudson, she's something, and just so much drama going on there. And normally with Bill, I don't remember it being like this in New England. Again,
no, it wasn't.
It was not like this at all. But he's got this girlfriend, and she is she's something. She's quickly becoming someone that you just love to hate.
So the latest development in the past 24 hours, because she put out a screenshot of an email allegedly written by Bill a couple days ago, and she said a press release was coming out, which that ended up coming out yesterday. And to kind of sum it up, it is also allegedly from Bill through the university, where he's talking about the CBS interview where she famously interrupted and said, "We're not talking about our relationship." And in the first paragraph of this statement, he says, "I clearly communicated with my publicist at Simon & Schuster that any promotional interviews I participated in would agree to focus solely on the contents of the book." Hours later, CBS News PR says when we agreed to speak to Mr. Belichick, it was for a wide-ranging interview. There were no preconditions or limitations to this conversation. This was confirmed repeatedly with his publisher before the interview took place, and it was completed. So it's not just Bill and Jordan looking like buffoons right now. The university is now starting to look stupid, which
obviously a distraction right now, but it will be elevated to the point where it's like, all right, like this is actually not good, and it's not good for our brand if it starts affecting the results on the field. Now, luckily, the season has not started yet, but we still got, 4 months until the season begins, and that's a lot of time for some more drama to happen. And yeah, I just don't know. And with the whole interview situation, I get both sides of it, like that the focus is supposed to be on the book, and that alone from Belichick's standpoint. But CBS is saying that it's supposed to be a wide-ranging interview, and there were no preconceived notions that, hey, we're supposed to only talk about the book. Like, obviously, that's the focus. But in any interview, this goes for, when an actor's promoting a new movie, they're going to be asked about old movies or something that they might possibly be in. That is never an issue. So I don't see an issue with asking necessarily about Bill's personal life with, about the girlfriend and stuff, because again, it's such a, I don't want to say fascinating, because it's not fascinating. It's strange that a 73-year-old man is dating essentially someone my age. Like, that's kind of strange, This
thing is a train wreck, and we are watching, being entertained by said train wreck. But you bring up the point that we're still 3 months away from the season, and if I'm Bubba Cunningham, if I'm the people in charge at North Carolina, I'm probably starting to get concerned on, okay, how locked in is he actually on football? And, what effect is Jordan going to have on the football itself? You know what I mean? Because here's the thing, and this is why this is so surprising. Bill Belichick was the ultimate control freak in New England. There was not a single thing that happened within that football facility that he was not aware of, that he did not have say over. And now he's gone to North Carolina, and a girlfriend that's 50 years younger than him is pulling his puppet strings. Like, that's what makes this so unbelievable, that he's just been submissive to this to a degree. And again, we don't know all the things behind the scenes and what exactly this relationship is, but it's so surprising. And again, she was on the field during spring practice and the spring game. So again, am I going to be shocked if she's staying there on the sidelines during a North Carolina football game this fall? Absolutely not. And if I'm North Carolina, I got to figure out how to squash this right now.
It's just like, why is... We don't really get to see the full thing about like what's really going on behind the scenes, but just from what we get to see, it's like, why is Bill Belichick letting a random girl that he's been dating for less than a year at this point kind of dictate his life? At least that's the way it looks. It's just, I don't understand what is going on and why this is happening. Why he's so enthralled with such a young woman. Now there's obvious reasons out there why,
Sure.
But I just don't understand it, honestly. It's become such a mess. Now, here's the thing, though. UNC could have avoided this whole situation, number one, by didn't they fire Mac Brown because of his age, because he was becoming an issue in that sense? Like, why hire a guy that, in fact, is a year older than Mac, I believe?
Yep.
And I get it. Bill is like the greatest coach in NFL history. I understand that. But number one, just football focus here. The college game is so much different from the NFL. Yes, you got the portal now and stuff and all that, but Bill hasn't dealt with that stuff. He doesn't have to deal with Tom Brady's parents or Julian Edelman's parents when he's doing contract negotiations. He's just dealing with the athlete and their agent.
Yeah.
In this sense, you got to deal with so many different people, and then on top of that, you got to deal with I'm sure he likes dealing with Jordan, obviously, to continue dating her. But it's just there's so many different things he's got going on here. It's like, what are we doing here? Why did UNC make this move other than maybe a publicity hire?
And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how successful he's going to be at North Carolina. I'm not putting a lot of eggs into that basket because, again, it's a very different world. And look, he is the most accomplished head coach in NFL history. There is no denying that. But like you said, this is a different game. The way you go about it, the way you coach, the way you deal with your players is much, much different. I don't know if he's going to be successful with that. Now, I could be wrong, and North Carolina could win 11 games, the ACC championship, and be in the playoff this year. And I'll happily admit I was wrong if that happens. But until then, I'm skeptical. And I brought it up when you looked at his salary. He's one of the highest paid coaches in college football. He's making $10 million a year. I don't think he deserves that because he's not done that at this level.
Yeah, again, it's not Bill's fault. It's UNC's fault. And, I want to feel bad for Bill with this whole situation. But again, I'm sure he's the one.
New England was one of the biggest villains in the NFL for the longest time. People are enjoying this. People are loving watching him just fall apart in front of our eyes, seemingly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, it's just so different from what I thought this tenure was going to be like. And it hasn't even really started yet. Like, we're only through spring practice, and it's kind of a train wreck, as you put it. And I don't know how long this is going to last, because especially if the results on the field are not good. The goal this year for UNC should be to get to a bowl game and do a little bit more potentially after that. Kind of akin to what Shane Beamer did in year one at South Carolina, getting to a bowl game and coincidentally beating UNC in the Mayo Bowl. That should kind of be the goal this year. But anything short of that, missing a bowl game, God forbid you go like 2-10 this year or something awful like that, you're not only going to have boosters and fans and everyone calling for Bill's job and probably sending Jordan Hudson like death threats and all that stuff, because that's just the way it goes, it's seemingly in sports for whatever reason, though I don't agree with it. You're going to have the administration probably being like, what do we do here? And this is all kind of UNC's own mess that they're in, and they're going to have to figure that out if things get really, really ugly here, because losing does not help this situation whatsoever.
No. And every time something goes wrong, whether it be losing a game or an issue in the locker room, it's all going to come back to this. Okay, how much control does Bill actually have over his own program, let alone his own life? Because we're starting to get very concerned about this, which is so bizarre because, again, it seemed like Bill Belichick was the ultimate control freak when he was in New England, and now the shoe seems to be on the other foot. So, bizarre story. There's going to be more coming out about it, and we'll see how North Carolina ends up handling it as time goes along. We'll continue on. Coming up next, a familiar name from the rival school, switching sports. You're going to have to deal with him coming up in the fall as well. We'll just talk about that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. It's our head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Thursday on the game. Welcome back in. Extra Point. It's our head, Jack Beltry, along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Reminder, you've watched football at Williams-Brice Stadium. Now you have a chance to play some golf inside of it. Upper Deck Golf coming to Columbia May 9th and 10th. You have a chance to win a VIP 4-pack of tickets if you go to the 1075 The Game Facebook page and upload a picture of yourself at a game at Williams-Brice Stadium. We'll notify our winners coming up on Tuesday. If you are selected for Upper Deck Golf, it will be on May 9th or May 10th. Saw this story yesterday, Jack. You brought to my attention that is quite interesting. For anybody that's a fan of Gamecock basketball, you are familiar with the name Ian Shefflin, who's been at Clemson for the past 4 seasons, had 23 points against South Carolina in the overtime loss for the Tigers earlier on this year. Well, you might have to start dealing with him in another sport as well, as reports indicate that he is attempting to join Dabo Swinney's football team as a tight end.
You know, I think it's kind of cool, honestly. Like, I think it's now people are probably asking, wondering, how is this possible? How was he able to do this? Because number one, remember when his time at Clemson came to an end this past season in basketball, he entered the transfer portal with no eligibility left.
Yep.
Now, a lot of players are doing that. Jamari Thomas has done that here at South Carolina, and you got hundreds of thousands of other players doing the same, in hopes that there are a lot of lawsuits out there, hoping that the NCAA is going to grant a 5th year for everyone moving forward. But with this, it seems like the transition is going to be to football. And the story that you linked here to share with me here, Tyler, is interesting because there's a quote from Dabo Swinney from last season saying, quote, "When he's done with basketball, I'm going to get him out here at D-end, tight end. That's a football player. I'll definitely have a spot." I mean, he's 6'8", 240, so he could definitely very well play tight end. Now, him going up against Dylan Stewart.
I don't know if this has changed in the past 10 years or whatever, but I know for a period of time at least, you could exhaust your eligibility in one sport while still also having eligibility possibly in another. I knew somebody that I believe played soccer in college, and I think they transferred to Georgia Southern, and they were talking about, they could have gone out for the football team, tried to been a kicker. They just couldn't play soccer at the school for whatever the NCAA rules are on that. And again, the NCAA has a million rules on those kind of things, so I'm not sure if that factors into this as well. But like you said, he's exhausted his eligibility when it comes to basketball because he played all 4 seasons at Clemson, and obviously was somebody that Carolina had to deal with a lot on the basketball court in his time there. So it is going to be interesting to see. Now, they are very deep at tight end. I'm looking at their depth chart. They have 4 guys already, so I don't know how much he would see the field necessarily, but he can at least continue his college athletic career if he's granted the ability to do this.
Now, I'm trying to figure out what's the angle here, because he did play tight end and quarterback in high school. Yep. So there's that. It's not like this is at least we don't think it's some publicity stunt for him to play football, because he seemingly has done it before in the past. And, coming out of high school, he did have offers to go play football at certain schools. But I'm trying to figure out what's the idea behind this, because why would you want to, waste a year sitting on the bench?
For one, you can get NIL out of it because you're already a known and established athlete. So there's that. I don't know what his pro prospects or basketball are. I don't think it doesn't sound like he's got quite a future in the NBA, and you can go internationally and do things that way. But I don't know. It gives you something to do in another year if you're granted that at Clemson. So I guess there's that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's only 22, so I'm sure he still wants to enjoy the college life and all that. But I don't know. I think it's kind of strange, and good for him. More power to him. For enjoying his college time and trying to do something different. And it seems like if this does come through, that Clemson seems cool with it and all that, and that it's going to pass. So, I'm interested to see how this ends up turning out.
And I think it's interesting because thinking about this yesterday, I feel like dual sport athletes in college used to be a lot more prevalent. There's still guys out there, but I feel like it was more of a normal thing 10, 12, 15 years ago. Famously, Russell Wilson played football and baseball at NC State. You've had plenty of guys that have done the basketball and baseball, or basketball and football thing. Tony Gonzalez, did that. Antonio Gates, a couple tight ends. Jimmy Graham. That was kind of a prevalent thing. And I just feel like we don't hear about that as much anymore. Now, yes, the college basketball season has kind of started earlier and earlier, and that may have something to do with it. And, if you're playing football, then you're typically not coming into the basketball season until about halfway through, and maybe that's something a lot of coaches aren't as cool with. But I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a rarer thing in today's world of college sports to see the guy go out there and truly play two different sports.
It definitely is, and I think
as
we've
far as
gotten
like
to
stick and ball sports. Like I know Nick Harbor's obviously doing football and running track.
Yeah. So I think that we've just come to the realization that kids are, I guess, being encouraged, to focus on one sport that they're really good at and then don't play the other sports, which I disagree with. I think you should be playing as many sports as you can throughout your youth and going into high school and stuff. And yes, if you're obviously really good at one thing, that's I guess a different situation. But I mean, I don't know. The days of, I was watching a video the other day, coincidentally, before this even happened, on, Deion Sanders doing the baseball and football at the same time and stuff. And I'm just like, how the heck did he do this for over nearly like a decade? It's crazy to
especially
think
once
about.
he got to the pros. That was insane.
Oh, yeah. And it helped being in Atlanta for both sports. But, I mean, with this, it's not necessarily the same thing, because it seemingly looks like his college basketball days are over and that his focus would just be on football. But, again, you mentioned it. There's so many tight ends on the roster there. And I know they're replacing Stool. So that's going to be a big loss that they're going to have to fill the shoes of. But I just don't know how this is going to work in the sense of, like, what kind of football shape is he in, number one? Because, basketball is a lot different than football. And he's got the size, he's got the height, but how is it going to translate over to, is it something that he can just pick up and be good at again? And can he actually make a significant impact on the football field for Clemson this year? That's a big question.
And that's a good point that you bring up, because different conditions and different shapes are required for every sport. So basketball shape and football shape are different. Obviously, we talk about Nick Harbor having to transition from track to football when it comes to the type of shape he's in, the weight that he's carrying, all those kind of things. So that may be a reason why it's not as prevalent anymore, because in today's world of nutrition and exercise and all that kind of stuff, with the understanding and the data to back up so many different things, I think that transition from sport to sport, especially ones that run right into each other like football and basketball do, I guess is tougher than it once was.
It definitely is. And again, it's something we just don't see anymore. Like, the one case I could think of a guy doing both in terms of, like, recently would be like Bruce Ellington, playing basketball and football at one point. Jameis Winston did baseball and football, and then eventually just decided to go to football. But again, this is different in the sense of, like I said, Shefflin's days of college basketball, he still has the option to transfer somewhere for basketball and potentially use that fifth year if he gets the clearance. But right now, it seems like football, and it's very interesting. And I am interested in seeing how this whole thing does play out this year.
Yeah. So again, Ian Shefflin trying to join the Clemson football team if granted that extra year of eligibility when it comes to the NCAA. You ever made your parents really mad about something before?
Of course.
You ever cost your parents $100,000?
Not that much money.
You ever cost your parents work $250,000?
Nope.
Well, one kid did that this week. We'll dive into that coming up next. There's Dan Point, Tyler Head, and Jack Beltry along with you on your Thursday on the Game.
to publicly apologize to Shedeur and the Sanders family for what occurred. Second of all, I want to publicly apologize to Mr. Blaine, Terry Fontenot, Reed Morris, and the entire Falcons organization. My actions of not protecting confidential data were inexcusable. My son's actions were absolutely inexcusable. And for that, we are both deeply sorry. The NFL has taken action, and I fully respect the punishment. We take full responsibility, my son and myself, and we will not be appealing the fine in any way. Going forward, I promise my son and I will work hard to demonstrate we are better than this. Again, I'm deeply sorry for our actions.
Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher with you on your Thursday. That was the voice of Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich apologizing yesterday when meeting with the media to what happened over the weekend with the prank phone call that went to Shedeur Sanders, where his son Jax pretended to be Mickey Loomis, GM of the Saints, and told Shedeur, hey, sorry, you're going to have to wait longer, and then hung up, which, by the way, the execution of the prank phone call, very poor. I give it a 1.5 out of 10 because it wasn't even funny, and Shedeur was confused when he hung up the phone. And then the kid filmed himself doing it, which is obviously how it got caught. And guess what? When you have a confidential number that only a handful of people in the world have as of right now, it's going to be pretty easy to track how you ended up getting that. As it turns out, he got it off his dad's iPad when he was at home visiting that was apparently unlocked, which is why Jeff Ulbrich gets dinged for this. But Ulbrich fined $100,000, and then the Atlanta Falcons fined $250,000 for this stupid prank that his son tried to pull.
Well, this kid is, quite frankly, an absolute idiot. Like, this kid is a moron for doing this. Like, in what world was this a good idea? Number one, I think it's just dumb in general. Like, what goes through your head to do something like this? And obviously, kids in high school and college, their brains are not fully developed, obviously. And I think it's a lame excuse, number one, that their brains aren't fully developed, because they can clearly think, hey, this is a really stupid idea. Let's not do that. Let's not ruin some kid's future over this. Like, it's just, and the prank call, like you said, it was a 1.5 out of 10. It was a dumb prank call. The execution was just not there. So I don't understand it. And you mentioned the punishments and stuff. I mean, what's the punishment going to be for this kid with his dad and stuff? Because he's costing him so much money, and coordinators do not make as much money as head coaches or anyone like that. So this is a decent size of change that's being taken away from Jeff Ulbrich here.
I'm looking it up here. I want to see what Jeff Ulbrich's annual salary is, because you're right. $100,000. He makes 1.6 per year, so he's almost cost his dad 10% of his annual salary with this stupid joke, and the organization itself, $250,000. That's nothing to shake a stick at by any means. I wonder what's that, because I'm assuming, because he's at Ole Miss, he's a student at Ole Miss, where I'm assuming he was at when this prank happened, because him and his buddies were filming it for Instagram or Twitch or whatever they were on. As the details come out, when he sees his phone light up and it says dad is calling, wonder what's going through his mind of, do I pick this up? Because I know this is not going to be good.
Yeah, let's just say there should not be any Christmas presents or any birthday presents.
For years. For years. Like, buddy, honestly, I'm assuming Jeff is paying this kid's tuition. You're going to have to go to community college, because I'm not paying for you to go to school until you recoup me this money.
No, totally. There should be harsh repercussions for something like this. Again, it may seem funny to the Ole Miss college kids and all that stuff, which I don't even know why. Why would you post it all over social media?
Never tell on yourself.
You are asking to be punished. You are asking for trouble. And isn't it also illegal in some sense to be doing something like this, to be impersonating someone else? Like,
probably.
it's a bad look, man. And he's lucky he's not, getting charged right now by Shador and stuff. He's lucky Shador accepted his apology because I just, it's so childish, number one, and it's just stupid. And I don't blame Shador for doing what he did in terms of having the secure phone number that only goes to head coaches and stuff.
I think most high draft picks have that, which is why these numbers are so hard to get.
Yeah, and I don't blame him for that because it shouldn't have gotten out. And I don't really blame Jeff Ulbrich just because, again, this is not his fault that, yes, maybe his iPad was open, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe the passcode was there.
Here's the thing. If you leave your iPad open, at a Starbucks, yeah, you're opening yourself up to having your information stolen. I feel like you should be able to leave it open at home and trust that your family is not going to do something nefarious that's going to cost you a lot of money at your job, right?
It's just like, I think no thought went into this. I'm envisioning it right now. The kid is literally walking past the couch. He sees the iPad there. He knows of the fact that, hey, Shador and some other players, they got their little numbers on this iPad. Let's make a prank call. I think this was just a spur of the moment thing, and it turned out to be really, really dumb and foolish, to be honest. And now, we're not going to probably know what this kid's punishment is, but it's probably a lot worse than paying $350,000 in fines, because it's gonna be a big punishment, I'm sure.
I imagine Jack Solbrook may be working at the McDonald's out there in Oxford here very soon, trying to make some of this money up.
Yeah, put the fries in the bag, bro, because that's what he should be doing. That's terrible.
If he was getting any kind of help from his father, I don't think he's getting that right now, and may not be getting that anymore going forward.
Yeah, and if he had any dreams of going to work in the NFL or anything, I think the NFL is going to just blackball him at this point.
You dinged your chances, that's for sure. But again, I just wanted my Falcons to get through the draft unscathed. They drafted well, but then, of course, this happened, so pretty typical. But
yeah, it's a bad situation.
Yeah, it is. That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz School and Heating. Wes Mitchell sitting down with JT Gear of Gamecock football for a couple of minutes. We'll hear from him coming up next here on The Game.
All right.
All right, everybody, welcome back into another edition of the Gamecock Club on 107.5 The Game. I am Wes Mitchell. Once again, we're joined by a special guest from Gamecock football. It is senior edge rusher Jatius JT Gear joining us to talk a little bit about his career so far at South Carolina and then what they have in store for the 2025 season. JT, man, we appreciate you taking the time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you, man, for sure. So, like I said, want to let the fans get a little kind of glimpse behind the scene of what's been going on with you and the football program over there at South Carolina. So, obviously, spring ball just wrapped up. So, let's kind of start with that. Can you give us maybe a little summary, a little wrap-up? How do you feel like the spring went for you? What were some things you were focused on? And kind of what is your focus as you exit out of spring into the rest of the offseason, man?
I feel like I had a very good spring. I feel like right now I'm playing some of my best football. So my main focus on exiting the spring is just kind of, staying consistent and keep taking those steps to get better each and every day. One of my main focuses for me during the spring was, bringing the young guys along, being that good leader, mentor that they need and that they can see in being somebody that they can follow.
So obviously for you, you've kind of had some, I think, opportunities that were cut short just by being banged up at times in your career. I know when you first got here, some pretty high expectations for you, and I think it was an ankle, some stuff just that kind of kept piling up on you. How are you feeling these days? Do you feel like your body, like kind of physically, you're where you want to be going into what's going to be a big 2025, man?
Yes, I definitely feel like I'm where I need to be, where I'm supposed to be, for sure. Just been, like you said, I've been battling these injuries the past couple years, but now I think I kind of found a nice place, a nice routine for myself to, kind of keep from preventing those injuries and being at the best of my ability and being at the top of my game,
For sure, man. So you mentioned some of those young guys coming in, and obviously as an older player, you're focused, I'm sure, on your personal development, but then helping those guys out. So when you mentioned kind of the young guys, what was maybe your message to them? Is that just kind of a day-to-day encouraging them? Is that more helping them out with some technique stuff? What do you feel like you were kind of just trying to teach or impart on some of your young teammates?
I'll say just, the overall aspect of being a college football player, like taking everything serious from class to the field and even to the playbook. But not only just football, teaching them how to be better and be great young men, as well. Like football got to end for all of us, someday. So my biggest thing to them is just, trying to teach them how to be better young men and be the best people that they can be.
Yeah, for sure, man. And so not to give away like a private conversation or anything, I know Coach Beamer meets with each individual player at the end of the spring, and you kind of have that opportunity for you both to share feedback on where you are. How did you feel like kind of the end of the spring stuff went in terms of those talks and kind of just your position moving into this 2025 season in terms of what you want to do, what you need to do to maybe lock down one of those starting spots and make a big impact this year?
Yeah, me and Coach Beamer, we had a nice conversation, man. He just let me know the growth that he's seen from me, not only this spring, but, since from when I first got on campus. So that was a nice little conversation. But, it let me just know just to keep doing what I'm doing, just keep being steady. Like I said at the beginning of our conversation, just keep taking those steps each day to get better. And, in his eyes, I'm right on track where I need to be. So that means a lot.
For sure. You've had the opportunity, and I would say luxury and privilege from everything I've heard of being under a coach in Sterling Lucas, who a lot of people just brag on as one of the top kind of up-and-coming developers at your position. What is it like on a day-to-day basis to learn from Coach Sterling Lucas, and maybe just what stands out about learning from him on kind of that day-to-day ability and basis for you?
I think what stands out for not only me but for everybody in our edge room is that he's relatable. You know, he can relate to the type of people that we are, you know, kind of how we grew up. And also, you know, majority of us in the room, or maybe I'll say about half, we're from South Carolina, and he is as well. So that's another step of, you know, that strong relationship, that strong way that we can connect with him. And also, you know, he's a guy who's been in the league. He's been around some of the best, you know, and he knows what it takes. So being able to have that second perspective is everything, you know. He has a vision for all of us, and he has a certain way that we need to do it, and that's kind of what helps really shoot the development up, you know, for all of us.
For sure. Again, we're hanging out here with JT Gear, South Carolina Edge. You mentioned the state of South Carolina and guys that are from the state of South Carolina. I know obviously you started your career at Syracuse, but what has it meant since you transferred home to, you know, run out there in front of your friends and family, to suit up in the garnet and black? Just, I mean, that's something you're going to look back on 10, 20, 40 years from now and be able to tell, like, the kids and the grandkids, hey, I played for the home state university. Has it, as now kind of an older player, has it hit you yet? Like what that will kind of mean to you, maybe even down the road?
Yeah, man, I'm not gonna lie, that's still kind of a surreal feeling for me. Just, man, running out to the 2001, it never gets old for me, man. Like, it still feels like a dream every single time, man. So, you know, I'm grateful for it. I'm thankful for it. I'm going to my senior year, so I really hate that it has to end. But, man, it never gets old for me, man. Every time, like, it's just one of those things. But that's definitely something, you know, that's big for me, my community, my city, and even my family, just to be able to do something like that, you know?
Yeah, no doubt, man. And so speaking of those fans, I know one thing I love about NIL and then the Gamecock Club and the opportunities you guys get with them and Garnet Trust is it seems like there's more chances for y'all to be out in the community doing like autograph sessions. I've seen the football team at other sporting events, hanging out with fans. What does it mean to you, one, to just kind of have that NIL support, but two, to be able to use it to meet those fans in person, maybe, you know, make a kid's day that you give them your autograph and just kind of maybe get to meet the people that are supporting you guys financially?
Man, the interactions are wonderful. Like, the fans, they love us so much, and their support is unwavering. You know, even going back to the 22-23 season, you know, we didn't have the best season, but the fans still showed love when we seen them. You know, they let us know that they're riding for us and they're here with us no matter how things go. And that just means a lot, being able to talk to them and being able to get their viewpoint of things. You know, we on the sideline or we on the field, you know, playing the game. They're in the stands, but their perspective is totally different from ours. But it's always nice to hear. It's always good to, you know, hear those things. And like you say, get to make kids' day, man. You know, get to give them something to look up to and, you know, maybe aspire to be one day, that a lot of us on the football team really didn't have. We didn't really have that certain person or certain team or, you know, things like that to look up to. So just being able to be a kid's motivation, man, it means everything.
You mentioned that 2023 year obviously was not the season y'all wanted, but great bounce back in 2024. And just I know y'all are, as a group, looking to build from that moving forward. Was there a moment during like that off season after 2023 going into last season where you were kind of looking around like, hey, we're gonna bounce back from what happened last year? I feel like we have a good squad. Did you kind of know during the off season y'all were gonna have the season you had last year, or was it something that just kind of came into place as the year itself progressed?
First off, I like to start by saying Coach Beamer and the staff did a great job bringing the recruits that they brought in, you know, this past season. But I feel like, you know, I kind of felt that, me personally, our first workout in January coming off of the 2023 season, it's just like, man, the mentality that we all had, like we all sitting in there, you know, right before the warm-up meeting, and we huddled up talking, and it's just like we all had that bad taste in our mouth, and I just look around and see everybody eyes. Everybody had that look in their eye, like, man, it's time to go. Take this thing over, basically, for lack of better words.
Yeah, for sure. And so college football these days, man, there's a lot of that roster turnover every year where you got new teammates coming in. That's always been the case, but with the portal, just it's a lot different now. What have you seen maybe in workouts so far and just kind of getting to know some of these new guys? Whether it's some of the guys at defensive tackle that would play alongside you potentially, or even on the O-line going up against them in practice, or just players in general. What have you just seen from this group so far that are coming in now and trying to make similar impacts to that group from last year?
Yeah, I've been playing college football for a bit now, and I have to say, like, this is probably one of the strongest freshman classes I ever been around. I'm not even gonna lie. Not only the talent, these guys are super talented, super athletic, but their mentality, like, they want to work, they want to get better, and each and every day they're working to do that. Like, they're studying the playbook daily, they're getting extra work on their own. That goes a long way. Like, a lot of guys don't start going through that process till maybe their second or third year. These guys are only been here 4 or 5 months, and they're already taking those steps. So that just shows, and that's a testament to what kind of team that we will have and what kind of team that we can be.
Can you give us a little evaluation there, man? Just I know Anthony Addison and Quay Dye were the two true freshmen that came in. Both, it sounds like, have already made some noise and kind of looked the part. You see them on a day-to-day basis, though. Give us a little preview, like as those guys get older and grow into the system and into the scheme, what do you think maybe fans can expect from both those guys in the future?
Both of their guys' play style, they play with a lot of effort. Like, they play with amazing effort. So that's one thing that you can always expect from them, not only this upcoming season, but throughout the rest of their career at South Carolina. Those guys are going to give it their all every snap, every play. Even if it's a 10, 15 play drive, even on that 15th play, they're going to give it their all. So that's one thing that you can definitely expect from Jaquavius Dye and Anthony Addison. Those guys, both of them play with a high motor. But as they come along and continue, like you say, to get really the scheme down packed, man, the ceiling is high for those guys. I ain't gonna lie, they can do a lot.
All right, we're hanging out here with JT Gear. We've got to take a quick commercial break, but you're listening to the Gamecock Club on the Game, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back in. Hanging out again here with JT Gear. This is the Gamecock Club Hour. He, of course, is a South Carolina football senior playing the edge position. JT, we like to let the fans get to know you guys a little bit more off the field on this show as well. So first things first, if you're not playing football, you're not training, you're not practicing, what is JT Gear doing? Just kind of hobby, having a little bit of fun in your free time. What would be kind of filling your time if you're not playing football?
I like to play the game. I like to play video games. I like to fish, but also I like to interact with the community. That's one of my biggest things. It's something I enjoy doing. I enjoy human interaction. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the things that I cherish a lot. Just this past weekend. Matter of fact, not past weekend, but it was like Monday, Tuesday. I went down to, just spending my money the right way, being able to take care of other people, man. That's what really make me feel good. So I say those my off the field hobbies.
What was it like looking at that classroom of kids who are about to do the testing? And I'm sure they're like literally looking up to you, and you kind of look and see all those eyeballs looking back, hearing what you have to say, like holding on to every word. That's got to kind of make an impression, I would think, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that moment there, because it was third, fourth, and fifth grade. They were all in the gym. It was like a little pep rally kind of thing. That moment was so reminiscent for me, man. I can't lie. Like, I'm just thinking, like, man, I wish I could still be a kid again. You know what I mean? It had me back in that mind state. But it was good, man. Just being able to have a voice that kids care to listen to. And, care to hear what I got to say, man, it felt very good,
Yeah, no doubt. So, all right, we'd also like to talk a little food here, JT. So, I guess we'll start favorite food, and let's build out a plate, man. Like this is kind of like a Last Supper type thought. Like if you had to have your favorite foods on this plate, what's going on there? And it can be anything in the world. This is completely your meal, your plate.
All right, I'm going to go oxtails for my protein. You know what I'm saying? I got to go oxtails. I'm going to go oxtails, mac and cheese, yams, collard greens. Then for my dessert, sweet potato pie. For my drink, I'm going to go blue calypso,
Okay. So it sounds like we're going heavy, like grandma's home cooking all the way, Sunday lunch type meal there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I respect it, man. I respect. Do you cook at all, or not really?
Nah, man. I could cook. I cook breakfast, man. That's about it. I feel like everybody can go cook breakfast, man. The best thing that I can make for somebody if they wanted me to cook for them is cereal.
You can't mess that up, right? Oh man, hey, I respect it, man. I respect the honesty. So, did you play other sports growing up, or were you a football only guy?
I played football and basketball growing up. Those were the only two sports.
How good were you at basketball?
I was pretty good, man. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm like who could I say? I'm like a Draymond Green mixed with a little Dwight Howard. You know what I mean? I say that. That's humbly speaking,
Were you getting ejected like Draymond?
I was physical. I'm a football player at heart, so I was very physical. But I wouldn't say I got ejected, but I definitely had to go sit down like towards halftime, so I didn't get fouled out.
You let your opponent know you were there. Basically, you respectfully leaned on them a little bit, just letting them know you were there. Which obviously, as a football player playing basketball, I feel like you got to do that. What was it like doing all the different sports y'all did during the winter workouts and stuff? Like y'all had the different teams, y'all were playing wiffle ball and basketball. I think dodgeball. Looked like a pretty good time. I saw Beamer and some of the coaches were out there playing dodgeball with y'all. How was that to do something with your teammates, but a little bit different than football?
That was fun, man. Getting to be able to have fun with each other and still be competitive in something other than football, that was a great feeling. It was very fun. Getting to see a lot of guys' talents outside of football. You know, a lot of the time we don't get to see each other outside of football. You know, we'll go to the Strom and play basketball sometimes, but getting to see these guys play like baseball and dodgeball, stuff like that was fun, man. Getting to see some of the bigger guys, the old linemen moving around more than they usually do. It was fun. It was definitely entertaining and comical. You know what I mean?
Was there anybody that you were looking around, or you and your teammates looking around like, I didn't know he had it like that. Like, I didn't know he could move like that. I didn't know he had that skill.
Yeah, I say Trevon Boy. Yeah, I say he a little quicker on his feet than we expected for sure.
Okay. Awesome. And as we close it out here, JT, we talked about this a little bit off top there, but I want to go back to just kind of the steps moving forward. I know this is your senior year. You want to go out, obviously, on a really high note, team-wise, but then personally as well. So if you want to kind of reiterate, is there anything in particular that you feel like you're going to be focused on with your game, whether it's, you know, gaining or losing weight, or whether it's a particular technique or film study? Is there anything you're like super focused on going into this summer and then into the season that you feel like is going to give you that sort of next step in terms of your game in your final year, man?
Like I said earlier, I feel like it's just continue my routine, you know, prehabbing, you know, just staying healthy. I feel like that's the best thing I can do for myself. But also the main thing that I'm focused on technique-wise when it comes to on the field play is being stronger in a run. You know, really setting down my side of the field more and just, you know, like I say, setting everything down on my side of the field, being stronger in the run.
No doubt. One other thing I did want to hit, I almost forgot. What was it like to see 5 of your defensive teammates get drafted, and then countless other guys, maybe not drafted, but have those NFL opportunities? I know that's got to be special to watch your teammates fulfill a dream, but at the same time, are you looking at it kind of as a motivating factor in terms of where you want to be as well? And exactly a year from right now, what were you thinking as you saw those guys have their names called in the draft, man?
It was an emotional feeling to see guys like D Knight, TJ, Nick, Cal, you know, get drafted, and how emotional it was for them. It almost made me emotional, just, you know, seeing how they set themselves up to be able to go take care of their families forever. You know, that's an amazing thing that anybody does. You know, I'm proud of anybody who's able to do that. But seeing guys that I've been playing with for the last 2 to 3 years, I've been around every day for the last 2 to 3 years, man, it's an amazing feeling. Like, and I'm so proud. I'm more proud than anything, man. It's a great feeling to see that. But definitely, like you said, like, it's definitely some motivation for me just seeing, like, hey, these guys were just right here beside me in my seat. So that shows me that I can do it without a doubt, man. So there's definitely some motivation from there.
All right, he is JT Gear. This has been the Gamecock Club Hour, presented by our friends at Krantz Cooling and Heating. JT, for one, man, we appreciate the time. For two, we wish you luck. And three, let's catch up and do this again sometime, man. Like I said, we appreciate you taking the time, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Go Gamecocks, man.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's Red and Wes Mitchell along with you. You just heard Wes's conversation with JT Gear. Over the course of those last couple of minutes, some good insight from him there as he heads into his senior year here at South Carolina. And you brought it up, he's been playing college football for a while. Only 2 years here at South Carolina. It feels like longer. And I believe he committed out of the spring window in 23, if I'm remembering correctly. But it really feels like he's one of those guys that's been around here for 3, if not 4 years, just for how much we've been saying his name over these past handful of years.
Yeah, and he came in. There was really an expectation, or at least a hope. You look at what he did at Syracuse, particularly his final year at Syracuse. All right, need some guys to come in and help at edge. He was one of those late additions where there was some excitement, like, hey, this guy could come in and play a lot. And you look at him physically, he certainly looks the part. Chris always brings up he was actually number 1 on the depth chart at one of the edge spots to start last season. And so there's ability there. There's talent there. He had the ankle injury his first year at South Carolina that I think really just slowed his progress and opportunities to play. And I've always thought, really for anybody, an ankle injury can be really, really debilitating. But for a big guy, it's just tough to move out there, man. So I think he was kind of working through that, and that slowed him down. There was obviously a ton of competition, ton of depth at that position last year. So, you can tell from listening to him, he has the context of, all right, man, this is the last ride for me at South Carolina. You can tell for an in-state guy coming back home, it has meant a lot to him as well. You can tell that community and the fan base means a lot to him. So, we'll see. One thing I was kind of trying to get out of him was, hey, what do you really, respectfully, what do you really think needs to happen for you to basically either take that starting spot opposite Dylan or take maybe that first rotational guy spot? Because I do think he still has the talent to potentially do that.
Yeah, and the health is obviously number 1 there, and it sounds like everything's good as of right now, going through spring practice and all that kind of stuff. And he has the opportunity. I know it's kind of a different situation because he's been here for a couple of years, but we went into last season without a ton of fanfare around Kyle Kennard and Demetrius Knight. We obviously saw what they did at their prior stops and said, okay, these guys could become solid pieces on the defense. We never foresaw both of them going out there playing as well as they did and obviously getting drafted like they did this past weekend. And JT Gear could be one of those guys that, yeah, he hasn't flashed as much here at South Carolina, and injuries do have something to do with that. But would it shock you if you brought it up there at the end of the interview talking about his teammates getting drafted, if a year from now we're saying, man, he's a guy that really kind of exploded in that 1 year, that final year at South Carolina, and worked himself into being one of the better players on the defense? Yeah,
he's got a chance, man. Somebody actually asked me, a buddy of mine, hey, when last year did you start to hear all this buzz about D. Knight and Kyle Kennard? And, things kind of run together. And I was trying to think through that question. We all think of like a Kyle Kennard through the prism of what we saw from him during this season. And, all the outcry, too, from Gamecock fans like, hey, why is he not being drafted higher? Like, this guy's a great player. I mean, the expectations at this point in the process were not, they were high in terms of, hey, he's got a great chance to be a starter.
Sure.
They were not for him to come in and do what he did. I think by this point in the process, we were already hearing quite a bit about D. Knight, and that kind of grew and grew and grew. But for Kennard, I wouldn't even say in preseason necessarily that we expected, like when I say preseason, I'm talking about like actual fall camp, a month to the season, like this is the lead in. There was some buzz about him, but I don't think it was to the extent of, hey, he's going to go win an award for the best defender, in the country. So there's still time for these guys, and it's always fascinating. You hear who generates buzz in the spring, but who can build off of that, who can stay healthy, who can take that big jump. The summer is huge, man. They basically have 1 month to reset at this point. I know exams are going on. Lots of guys are graduating, and all that stuff will go on this month. But then you really you gotta lock in for that summer period, because that's when your fall a lot of what you do in the fall, I feel like, is built during this summer period that's coming up.
I think it's interesting, and I know we kind of did our overview of the the edge room last week, maybe the week before. But now that you had the additions of George Wilson and Demon Clowney coming in, when you kind of look at the breakdown of the roster, much like the defensive line was a year ago, this is the most senior-laden room. Brian Thomas Jr., JT Gear, Wilson, and Clowney as well. So you've got a lot of guys. Yeah, the actual on-field experience isn't quite there for somebody like a Demon Clowney. He's kind of bounced around here, there, and everywhere in his career. But you have a lot of guys that have been around the game of college football for a while. Obviously, Brian Thomas Jr. has played a lot. JT Gear's got run when he's been healthy. And again, those other two guys coming in having just been around the game for a lot. So I'm intrigued to see what that experience means for those guys on the likely opposite side of the line of scrimmage from where Dylan Stewart's lining up.
Well, and do they feel comfortable just lining these guys up as, hey, you're a reserve? Or is it, like we talked about at some point during all this, are you trying to kind of mix and match a little bit and say, hey, George Wilson, we love you as a pass rusher. We want to get 15 to 20 snaps out of you in a game. Let's try to make those 15 to 20 count in terms of down, distance, situation, opponent, stuff like that. And so I think that's going to be fascinating to see. There was a luxury, I would say, this past season of just rolling those guys out there, right? Like, all right, if healthy and if you're not winded, Kennard, Dylan, you're on the field. If we need to get these guys a break, hey, we feel good about who's going in behind them. Now, there was a drop-off, obviously, but you felt good about it. And so this year, I think they're going to have to be a little bit more deliberate about that. But it does help. I do think there's a little bit of maybe a contract year type situation, too, with guys when they get into their junior years or their senior years and they really start to see, hey, this is my last opportunity. And it on all sides, too, because you hear JT talk about, man, it never gets old to run out to 2001. So from an emotional standpoint, from a pride standpoint, you're starting to realize, man, I don't have this many more opportunities to do this. From a business standpoint, from a fulfill your dreams to play professionally standpoint, you're going, I don't have this many more opportunities to show what I can do.
Sure.
So it does start to, that little pressure sometimes helps a lot. I mean, that's one of my favorite storylines in sports, though, especially the college side, when you have a guy who maybe hasn't, for a multitude of reasons, just quite put it together in their career, but they make that big jump their senior year. We see that all the time, and so if you were making a list of candidates, I mean, JT would be on there, I think. It's just about, one, staying healthy, and I think having a great summer for him.
And it'll be intriguing to see who has that first wow moment. And again, we know what we have with Dylan Stewart. We expect him to make those plays as the season goes along. But I look at last year's season opener against Old Dominion, where we went in with a lot of questions about the room in general. Again, Dylan Stewart was 5-star. That didn't mean he was going to come in and make an immediate impact. Kyle Kennard had decent numbers when he was at Georgia Tech, but not something we thought he was going to end up accomplishing what he accomplished. But in that first game, on that first drive, Kennard has a sack and forces the fumble. And then over the course of the entire game, Stewart and Kennard combined for 4 total sacks throughout the day. And from right there, it's like, okay, these are your 2 guys, and everybody else is going to be trying to rotate in and find their playing time. Now, does that mean someone's going to go out there and make that kind of moment against Virginia Tech in game number 1? Not necessarily, but I am intrigued to see who does kind of have that first wow game, wow moment, wow whatever, to kind of maybe establish themselves ahead of the rest of the group when it comes to finding out who the other edge is going to be.
Yeah, how many snaps do you think JT played last year, if you just had to guess?
I don't know, maybe 80, 100, something like that.
Good guess. 96.
Yeah.
Our guys at PFF, which, take them or leave them, but they were actually fairly. He only, the most he played in a game was 17. Tied Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Both games played 17. But his snaps and his grades drifted a little bit in the second half. But first 5 or 6 games of the year, he was more playing in. He played 14 against Old Dominion, 17 Oklahoma, 17 A&M, but just 6 and just 7 against LSU and Alabama. Didn't play a couple of weeks in there, it looks like. But some of his early grades, 69.8, 67.3, 80.3, 76.1. For those listening, anything above a 60 is basically like kind of above average on the PFF scale. Overall, 72.4 for the year. So he actually had a fairly productive year in his reps. And even early on, so he had 9 pressures last year. Let's see, 6. 7 of those pressures were in his first 4 games played. So, I think was it reported that he was banged up a little bit last year too? Was that
I feel like he was on that injury report a couple times. And again, you kind of see a gap of a couple games he didn't appear in. So I imagine that was probably when that happened.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. Some of it just runs together, frankly. But again, get healthy. There is ability here, and he is he's a like long, big, long-armed, like looks the part of a defensive end, and isn't like that skinny guy who you say, I can only rush the passer. Like he's got some ability there, and I'll be very curious to see. And he did, by the way, start that first game against Old Dominion.
He did. And again, Kennard and Stewart came in and took over, and obviously the rest is history there. So we'll see what JT Gear and the rest of that defensive edge room can do once the season gets here in a couple of months. Are you a believer in the butterfly effect, that if you go back and change something in the past, it drastically alters the prison that you live in now?
Yeah.
A certain college football coach brought that up the other day, and I want to get your thoughts on that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Crant School and Heating. Reminding Gamecock baseball back in action tomorrow night, taking on Florida over at Founders Park. Pregame coverage at 6:45 for a 7 o'clock first pitch right here on the game.
It was somebody did a story about that because obviously with Coach Saban's success, the greatest college football coach ever, not even question that, and how that thing kind of went full circle. And that's what I tell everybody. I said, remember, I didn't go to Alabama the year before, so it was. And it's some of the things that happened then that keep me here. Came up later on too, 1 year later, but. I used to always tell the story. So where's my trophy in Tuscaloosa, right? Where's my statue outside there? Because if I had gone there, you may not have those 6. You probably wouldn't have those 6 national championships.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell along with you here on your Thursday. That is Rich Rodriguez, who is making his return to the University of West Virginia after having a lot of success there back in the mid-2000s. Talking with CBS Sports the other day and bringing up the interesting point, as we obviously know that Alabama has been the dynasty of college football for almost the past 2 decades. Very nearly were coached by Rich Rodriguez in 2007 instead of Nick Saban, and obviously who knows what would have happened had that ended up happening instead of him staying at West Virginia for another year. But it's interesting that he brings that up because while that gets a lot of focus nationally, Rich Rod was also very much in the running for the South Carolina job when Spurrier stepped away in 2015. So it almost kind of makes you wonder, man, if he came here instead of staying at Arizona for another couple seasons, what would this program look like as of right now?
Yeah, I think if you really go down the rabbit hole on coaching hires, God, what was the one? There was an article. Who was it, Tyler? Somebody went down the rabbit hole for an article a few years ago, and it was like one coaching move, and it had the it looked like a family tree or something, just the way it
branched. The domino effect.
Yeah, and if you think about it, for one, just at a base sort of surface level, it's, all right, did they win or not? Did your program become dominant? Did your program go in the toilet? Did it go somewhere in between? What did that mean for other people? But if you want to go like existential and into like life stuff even, think about how big a coaching staff is. Mm-hmm. So all the individual coaches that, man, we're getting deep here, Tyler. All the individual coaches that were hired are now more than likely not hired at that school. It's a completely different set of assistant coaches.
Right.
So then personal lives, all those different assistant coaches are at different places.
Yep.
Their families are being raised in different towns. They're making new friends in different schools.
Sure.
All the support staff, some of them probably get to stay, like maybe they're in the prior, but some of them are brought in. We know how much connections are important. And then you're recruiting different high school players. So then players that went to South Carolina, met their future wives at South Carolina, then maybe had families down the road, are having completely different lives because maybe they never got a scholarship.
That's true.
From South Carolina.
Yeah.
So and maybe some of this applies to any job, like, hey, you get a job, but most people kind of get jobs near or in the somewhat same geographical area if they work in regular businesses. But coaches, it's more like
it's all over the place.
I'll go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? If it's the right fit. So there are obviously football and sports domino butterfly effects here, but just life.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, and you talk about from the instance of the Alabama job where Saban obviously gets it, and then, for the next 15 years, his assistants are getting hired as head coaches left and right and taking other jobs, and that's affecting other programs. And I think that's why I was kind of positioned that way in that interview, was the domino effect of him not taking that job and what it means for college football as a whole. But like you said, any kind of coaching hire, when you kind of go back and look at it and say, man, if this guy comes in instead of this guy, who knows what happens for all these other thousands and thousands of scenarios on the football field and off.
Who ends up hiring Saban if Bama is not available?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I'm trying to think what jobs would have been available in 2007 or in the next year or so.
That was a long time ago, Tyler.
Because he was still with the Dolphins, and
he was only there 1 year, right?
2 years. He was there 2 years. Okay. Famously said, I'm not going to take the Alabama job. Then a couple weeks later, he was. So I would assume he probably stayed. If there was no college job that took him, he maybe stays another year with the Dolphins. Who knows how that goes? And if he ever comes back to college within those next couple years, that's actually a really good thought. I'd have to do some digging on what jobs were available back then, but God, I don't know if he
and
ends up
who was connected to him, who had an AD that had a connection to Saban at the time.
Yeah. I mean, are we talking about him at? I know Coach Schneider was there, but like Kansas State or something crazy like that, and suddenly they become the dynasty of college football instead. Like I don't know, it is an interesting thing to think about.
And would Saban, and he is the modern GOAT.
Yes.
Not saying he's not.
Yeah.
But would he, wherever he picked, there is some luck that is involved in coaching success. So he obviously went to a place that had, I mean, it had become a little bit of a sleeping giant for a little bit, but had all the resources in the world for you.
Yep.
So maybe he goes somewhere else and is, that guy's a great coach, but not that guy's the GOAT.
I will see if I can figure out for tomorrow what jobs would have been available in that same hiring cycle. We can hypothetically map out what happened with Nick Saban and rewrite history. How about that? We'll try and do that tomorrow. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on The Game. 11 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris back in the Herndon Chevrolet studios. Enjoyed our time out at Firehouse Subs on Forest Drive yesterday. Appreciate our guy Larry Chandler, as always, for allowing us to be back out there again. Back studio today, starting the month of May. And yesterday, after we got off the air, some pretty cool news on the Gamecock Central front, and the entire family at On3 as you guys have partnered back up with a old familiar name, right?
Yeah, it's, man, the recruiting industry, I guess we'll say, has been a fascinating journey to watch, first of all, as a just college football fan, and then to be a part of since then. Chris, you know, I've been with every network that's ever existed at some point to an extent.
I forgot about that.
I haven't been
You
on.
really have.
I haven't been on Alliance.
Do you have a
Alliance?
Do you have a little
Alliance.
punch card for everyone you go to?
No, but I was on Scout.com back.
I
in the
think
day.
I think we were both like 10 years old, in fairness, when Alliance came out.
Yeah, so
I mean,
Alliance,
that's old.
that's the one I don't know if people, like, that kind of helped start all this, and
It
people
did.
don't remember that. But yes, so for those who didn't see the news, and again, we've said this on our board, I don't think much, if anything, really changes for Gamecock Central. The fan sites themselves are still operating independently, as we always have, just on that platform, and hopefully with even more resources, Chris, is how I'm kind of wording it, I guess. But, so yes, On3 bought Rivals, which now, you know, we'll see. Anytime there's the purchase of a company, there are details and stuff that will be worked out. I'm not going to speak to stuff that I frankly don't know and have no concept for how it's actually going to play out. But very cool, and just a full circle moment, because Shannon Terry, who was one of the co-founders, I guess, for Rivals back in the day, now, and then, of course, was a founder of 24/7 Sports, and, of course, the founder of On3.
All places you've been, right?
Now, yes, actually, now buys back Rivals.
And Wes was on Scout back in the day.
Okay.
Tyler, you remember old Scout.com?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
A good site, too.
What was the Georgia Scout.com site?
I
Dog
know.
Post?
Maybe.
His name was Dean.
Dean Legge.
Dean Legge. It was Dog Post, I think.
Is Dean still in the biz?
I don't know.
I always liked Dean.
He was a nice guy. Yeah, it's fascinating, and I mean, you know, I would love to actually have Shannon Terry on the show sometime. That would be amazing. But he's obviously, you know, just the GOAT when it comes to like online sports media. I mean, the record speaks for itself. But yeah, you know, back in the day, it was just like radio and newspaper, right? Like that's what you had. And so sometime around, what was it, Wes? Maybe 96, something like that. Shannon's like, we're going to start putting this stuff on the internet. And people, not going to work. Can't sell subscriptions online. They sold subscriptions
That
online.
internet thing's just a fad.
It's
It'll
just
die
a fad.
off.
It worked out fine. And so he sold Alliance to Rivals. Rivals kind of got run into the ground.
He sold Alliance to Rivals, I believe.
Yep.
Let's put an asterisk on all this that we think this is exact. We weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we got.
He sold it to. Then there was the .com, or the burst of
Yes.
the bubble.
burst.
Yes,
Early
it was a boom, but then it
2000s-ish.
was
.com excess era.
yes, and so Rivals went into bankruptcy.
Yep.
But Shannon bought it out of bankruptcy,
For less than he had sold it for.
and then so then ran it for a while, then sold it to Yahoo,
Mhm.
then started 24/7 Sports, then
Sold that to CBS.
sold that to CBS, but stayed on as CEO. Worked that for a little while. Then left as CEO. Waited probably contractually obligated amount of time. And then started On3. Now On3 has bought Rivals and partnered somewhat, I guess you would say, with Yahoo Sports.
Yeah.
All comes
Confused
full
yet?
circle.
Time is a flat circle.
It is.
By the way, I did check, and Dean Legge's still writing for Dog Post, by the way.
But what is Dog Post?
Let me
Right.
see.
Independent.
Yeah, it's got to be independent, I would think.
Yes, independent site.
Okay.
but still going.
It's with our guys at F5.
Yeah, it looks like
it's
a
on
tech
platform.
site. Yeah. Yeah, so it's been cool. I mean, look, I won't speak for you, Wes, but I was on the Rivals Network I started with Gamecock Central in 2009 full-time with Shu. And so we were on there up until, what year was it, 2022? So, I spent 13 years or so, I'm bad at math, something like that, on the Rivals Network and met, a lot of great people, a lot of opportunities, still know a lot of them, still talk to a lot of them. And so they've got a lot of great sites still. Tiger Illustrated, right, for any of our Clemson folks listening out there, or even Gamecock folks who I know a lot of Gamecock people read Tiger Illustrated. We get to be, kind of on the same team now, and a lot of the former people or a lot of the Rivals people that we used to work with. So it's exciting. So, if you're a Gamecock Central member, or if you're not, shameless plug, I would say the best way to think of it is nothing really changes for us, but just a lot more, resources, even more information, even more community, coming soon.
Yeah, from what we're being told and for what is being said at this point, the branding on the national side, the plan is for the recruiting part to go back. It's kind of a throwback to Rivals, and then On 3 will be more the transfer portal stuff, team stuff, NIL stuff. But that's more national branding. There was a little bit of misconception, I think, from people. Well, hey, Gamecock Central is On 3, so what does that mean? Y'all are changing your type of content? No. We're always looking at ways to add content. Don't get me wrong. We're not just going to try to stay the same. But in terms of our approach, we're not going to say, oh, no, we're not covering recruiting now. Like, we're still covering anything and everything. And the fan sites, really as they always have, will kind of live somewhere in between, operating on their own, but hand in hand with the networks there. So I'm excited, man. I think it's a pretty cool story, and I'm frankly excited for Clemson site to now be back to where we have one on the network for our Gamecock fans who want to read about Clemson and what's going on over there and like hate read about them. You now
the best kind of reading.
Have that opportunity. I'm guessing the main board comes back in play, which I think is a good thing. And so this is all good. It's good for Gamecock Central, and we're excited.
Go read all those details on on3.com about what all that merger means and everything. It's cool
Purchase,
stuff there.
not merger.
Purchase of Rivals means for all those sites going forward. Some pretty cool news here locally yesterday. Dawn Staley yesterday afternoon finally getting her statue unveiled. I feel like they had the tarp over that thing for the longest time. Finally got to see it. It's her sending the ladder to cut down the nets for the national championship, and obviously still hopefully a lot more accomplishments to come for Dawn Staley in her time going forward here at South Carolina. But nevertheless, you can't deny how amazing it's been for her time here so far, what they've accomplished, and turning into the dynasty of women's basketball that they've become.
Yeah, awesome moment. And I know, shout out Coach Staley if she is listening at this point, but I don't think this, and from what she said, this was never anything in the past that she really sought out or said, hey, I need to have a statue. But the thing about statues is they're about the other people appreciating who you are and what you've meant, not just to the basketball program or the school, but really to the community as well. And so I think an awesome moment for the city of Columbia, obviously an awesome moment for her, but an awesome moment for her players too. It was cool to see so many of them standing around her in the pictures. You have Sakima Walker, who, is going to a different school, but she's still out there supporting her coach, and just really, really cool moment for everybody involved, I think. And I think they did a good job with the statue, too, like making the decision to use the ladder. Because sometimes with statues, you're kind of like, statues can be awkward, honestly, frankly. And so you need
to have the right pose.
You need the right pose. You need the right thing to be the support for the actual statue itself. So making the decision to say, hey, we've seen her stand on a ladder and cut down nets a lot.
Sure.
Let's use that ladder as the foundation for the statue itself. I think it all worked out really well because we've seen you never want a statue to go viral.
No, the
Cristiano Ronaldo one,
Dwayne Wade,
yes,
some pretty bad ones, and that was more about the face itself But yeah,
That's an important feature.
That is an
when
important
you're,
feature because that obviously supposed to represent the person.
Yes. Yeah.
What's y'all's vote on the? I mean, the Nick Saban statue. I actually saw it earlier this year or last year rather at Bryant Denny. Like, it was pretty good. It had, to your point, Wes, about like taking something like a moment, not just having somebody standing there. Saban's got like the Saban clap going on.
He's coaching.
He's doing like he's got his hands ready to clap. He's got the Saban face. Like, I thought that one was well done too. But this one, it looks like he's about to yell at somebody, possibly, or give them some encouragement, like you don't know. So I thought that one was well done.
He's yelling at somebody while they're up by 40 points in a blowout game.
Yeah,
that's pretty quintessential Saban.
Maybe at Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, maybe so. But no, I thought Don Staley's statue was cool. You bring up the Saban one, and I think I asked you this when you came back from Alabama, if there were oatmeal cream pies sitting out around it, because that's something that people do. What would people leave at Don Staley's statue? Like, what's, maybe like a...
The candy. Isn't she always chewing on a little candy?
Lifesavers.
She's always got the candy
Coke.
over there on the...
candy, Diet Coke.
On the bench.
Is she Diet Coke?
I think it's Diet Coke, right? There's something that she drinks consistently, I think. Maybe I'm thinking of Coach Paris. Coach Paris is big on Diet Coke.
I just know she loves the candy.
She got the candy table.
And she loves winning.
If you can afford to leave, like, designer clothes, I wouldn't recommend it, but that's very on brand for her.
Coach is, what do they say these days? Her fit is above. It's above all of us, is what I'm saying. Like, I don't know anything about that stuff, but I know when they post, Coach, her fit today, she's got this on, that on. It's above my pay grade and above my fashion sense.
Some of it may cost more than what we all make in a year, if we're being honest.
Yeah. So, point being, though, shout out to Coach.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty
deserved,
awesome.
Well deserved.
The statue is big, too. Like, it's
huge.
They did, like I said, they did a really good job.
I thought when they were pulling the curtain off, as you're kind of seeing it, I'm like, is there a ladder in front of the statue? It took a second to be like, oh, no, she is on the ladder in the statue. But yeah, well done, looks great. And again, a great honor for her. And obviously she talked about the accomplishments and the great players that helped her, achieve something like that. And obviously a lot more left to accomplish for the years to come going forward.
Yeah, no, for sure. Again, congrats to her. And I don't know. We'll have to get back to you on what people should put at the bottom of the statue. But I say my vote is still for candy.
We'll think about that and maybe circle back to it tomorrow or something. We'll continue on with our position reviews coming out of spring football. Hit linebackers coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover.
All right, our friends over at Integrated Media can help you out with any of your home's audio-visual needs. And the best thing about them, one of the best things of many, is that they're a one-stop shop. So you don't have to go to a store. You don't have to pour through the hundreds of thousands of options online. You don't even have to do a bunch of research. If you say, hey, I want a new television. I want it mounted in this room. I'm not sure what the best brand is, what the best size is, where to put it, how to hook it up. They can not only source the equipment for you, let you know what the very best is in technology in 2025, they can come to your home and professionally install it, whether it's mounted televisions, indoor or outdoor, Sonos wireless speakers helping you with your home's Wi-Fi signal, security and cameras, or complete smart home systems. They can do it all. IntegratedMediaInc.com, 803-948-8327. The helpful team, Michael, Nathan, and their crew at Integrated Media.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris with you on your Thursday. Baseball back in action tomorrow as they take on Florida, which is your next chance to win the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Gamecock batter hits a Grand Slam. You could win all the money in the pot, which currently sits at $350. Go online to 1075game.com and register if you've not already for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. As we continue to work our way away from spring football, we go position group by position group. Now taking a look at linebacker, we obviously knew that you're going to be replacing a lot of good NFL caliber talent that you had a year ago, primarily out there on the field. But now we have the perspective of knowing you're replacing a second rounder, Demetrius Knight, and two guys that signed undrafted free agent deals with NFL teams in Bam Martin Scott and obviously Debo Williams. So again, reinforces how talented that room was. And as we've talked about a lot of times going through spring, it's a hard reset. Now you're looking at guys like J.R. Johnson, looking at the transfers coming in, looking at some of these freshmen, kind of wondering who's going to fill those holes. And if you can even be in the neighborhood of the same type of production that those guys were able to give you a year ago.
Yeah, I think it starts with J.R. Johnson. And, it's interesting. We've brought this up before, but Clayton White's comments during the spring basically about, hey, here's what we need to see from JR this offseason. And it was, I would say in some ways, Chris, one of those things where, I'm trying to think of how to put this. In some ways you're going, all right, it's a great thing for South Carolina that he has all the tools necessary to be an upper-level SEC linebacker because, if you don't have the baseline tools, if there's a limited upside, then that comes with its own sort of question marks and concerns. And ultimately, you're honestly kind of saying, all right, can we find a way to recruit over that guy? In this case, there are still some questions. Like, I feel like Clayton was pretty honest. Like, hey, we need him to keep developing, doing the linebacker things and becoming almost more like not just an athlete playing linebacker, but continue to hone the skill set that goes along with playing that position at a high level. So I do think, like, we're all kind of counting on J.R. Johnson, but it is an important offseason for him to have a big summer, continue to get more and more comfortable in this defense, and to continue to grow as a true linebacker. Can he do that? Of course. Is he going to be counted on? Yes, it sounds like. And I think there's a lot of guys we're going to talk about here, but to me, it all starts with JR.
Yeah, it does. And one of the most physically impressive guys on the team, you're talking about when you see, if you saw JR walking around, yes, certainly on the football field, but just seeing him in like a social setting, no pads, no helmets, you're like, which young defensive end is that? Because he's 6'4", 240. He looks every bit of it. But then you think back, this was a high school wide receiver. He played receiver in high school. So he's got tremendous athleticism. And I think it goes back to the general point of when you look at this room, whether it's the young guys, the transfers, Jaron Willis. Jaron didn't factor in much last season, but at the end of 2023, of course, he did. Like, you feel pretty good about the athleticism in that room. But the biggest thing you're losing, something we've talked about a lot with the defense as a whole, you're just losing lots of production, lots of experience. When you're talking about the top three at linebacker last year for South Carolina with Demetrius Knight, Debo, Bam, you're losing 1,600 combined snaps. Those three guys were in your top 5 tackling last season. You, by the way, lose your top 5 tacklers. Those three guys plus Nick Emanwari, who's the leader on the team in tackling, plus TJ Sanders, who was 5th. So you're losing tons of tackling, tons of production, and then, of course, leadership. Who was the guy on Friday nights who spoke to the team? It was Demetrius Knight. He was the guy that kind of gave the speech, going into the weekend and did a fantastic job with that. So, look, recruiting is important because you want to get that athleticism in there. You want to go get guys like the 3 that they just lost, right? And I think they've done that. But there's always going to be, some question marks when you're transitioning from losing those 3 guys that played so much to now you're plugging in guys into bigger roles. The good part of it, the positive, athletically, I think they can do it, right? Because they've got some guys. It's not like they're plugging in guys that have never played. They've got guys that have some experience. They don't have as much experience in total as these other guys.
And again, when you kind of look at this room as a whole, again, the transfers coming in, you guys have been very high on some of these younger freshmen and the opportunity for those guys to come in and make some kind of impact. And that's the interesting thing about a room like this, where you do kind of have that hard reset of losing all of your key contributors from a year ago. It's kind of wide open. And again, we think that J.R. Johnson is kind of the leader there, and you have your two transfers and Murphy and Okoronkwo that are kind of right behind him. Hey, I nailed it, right? I've been saying it enough. But there's ample opportunity, and we've seen some good things out of these guys in the spring as well, for them to find their way on the field, if not as starters, as solid rotation pieces as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the fascinating part, is seeing which of these transfers steps up. They're going to be in the rotation, but how does that rotation look? Who steps forward? I tell you what, I heard more and more as the season progressed about Sean Murphy as a guy who has kind of come along. I don't know if he would be a starter in the mythical too deep at this point, but I think it would, like if they were playing today, I think that would be a fairly safe bet. Certainly that he's in that conversation, but I think would probably be with the ones. And, you know, we heard quite a bit of hype about Okoronkwo when South Carolina signed him. So both those guys are going to be pushing. I think that's going to be an ongoing competition. It certainly helps to have those guys in and keep you from having to say, all right, these freshmen have to play right now and they have to step in and make an impact. The luxury of that is if one of these freshmen is ready, then they're kind of, Chris, playing because they earned it. They're playing because they put themselves in a position to do so, as opposed to it being one of those almost by default, like, hey, we need a guy. We've got to replace someone. Let's throw the freshman into the fire and let them have to figure it out as they go.
Yeah, because you look at that room and you can kind of visualize what a top four probably is, you know, again, no depth chart. But just saying, you know, if you rolled the ball out tomorrow, what does it look like? Well, JR and Jaron Willis, again, not two guys that have played, you know, 500, 600 snaps in a season. But JR did. He played in every game last year, a lot of special teams. But he played some. Jaron's played in some games, again, mostly in 2023. But they have some experience. And then the guys behind them figure to be the transfers. Justin Okoronkwo, Sean Murphy. Like, they have played some college ball. They haven't gone through a season and played as much as the guys ahead of them. The freshmen are presumed, let's say presumed, they've got room to move up to be behind. But, yeah, you're not throwing – we've seen this in the past at South Carolina. Like, I remember some years where it's, hey, you've got here's a freshman defensive tackle playing prominently because you kind of have to do that. You do still get the sense that although you've got some questions – you've got some guys that have some experience. You don't have to throw somebody out there just out of necessity, right? There's going to be a lot of competition in that room. I think not just between the transfers and the returners, but I think some of those freshmen will push as well.
Yeah, and again, that's another room like so many on this team that we're going to have to wait and see when the season gets here of who exactly those stars are, and hopefully they can, again, be in the neighborhood of production that team or that group had a year ago for that defense. Last year, Ohio State was the well-known biggest spender in college football en route to their national championship. Yesterday, I think we found out who might be the biggest spender in 2025. We'll hit that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
All right, guys, you know it. It's our friends at Firehouse Subs. Almost lunchtime now. Hit them up at firehousesubs.com, or maybe the easiest way to do it, the Firehouse Subs app. Hopefully you already got it. If you don't, download it today. Sign up for an account on there. Then you're going to get points every single time you order. If you want to try something new, try these two new hot ones, hook and ladder additions, the zesty garlic and the spicy dill. We were, of course, there at Forest Drive at Firehouse Subs yesterday, and guys, we had a little bit of everything once again. Fantastic. Our buffet of Firehouse Subs. And shout out to Larry for hooking us up as always. If you like spicy, the spicy dill is for you. if you like a little spice, but you're like me and you just kind of want the flavor, a little bit of a mild heat, the Zesty Garlic Hook and Ladder is for you. But, of course, it's still on that hook and ladder base with the ham, the turkey, the pepper jack, and phenomenal as always. There's something for you at Firehouse Subs, firehousesubs.com.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris with you on your Thursday here on the game. Again, Gamecock baseball back in action this weekend, taking on Florida. First game tomorrow night at 7. Pre-game coverage is 6:45 here on the game. Saturday, 4 o'clock first pitch, then Sunday, 1:30 to round out the series as they, again, try and piece together a successful Final 3 series to try and hopefully make their way into the postseason, though that not looking likely as of right now. This time last year, maybe it was in the summertime, we learned about Ohio State roughly $20 million roster allotment or funds allotment for their roster last year, which obviously brought in a lot of talent from all over the country and allowed them to pay some high-profile stars already on the team to stay for another year, which obviously was en route to the national championship over Notre Dame just a couple of months ago. The Houston Chronicle is reporting yesterday the University of Texas will pay between $35 and $40 million for its 2025 football roster alone. That does include the money from revenue sharing, which we know is around $13 to $14 million from that, but an additional around $20-ish million in NIL alone going to be paying in to the football roster for this year. So they're the early leader in the clubhouse for most expensive roster in 2025.
So that's a huge number. I mean, the reported numbers, I mean, Texas had one of the highest paid, highest ticket rosters in college football last season, made the playoff. Ohio State, who won, was said to have the highest, probably somewhere in the 20 million range. So that was a lot. So this is even more. And for clarity, the thought is that number, the $35 to $40 million estimate, does include the rev share allotment, which is around whatever. The actual cap's about 20 million. Football will get most of it, so call it 18, 20, whatever you want to call it. So that means they're getting, roughly 15, 20 million dollars over the cap, which is pretty impressive. But, the numbers have not come down yet. And I saw in this story that a source that the Houston Chronicle talked to said that they'll eventually phase out the collective and they're going to move NIL payouts through corporations. And they said it's unsustainable. And here's the thing that stuck out to me. The whole world will be back to reality after this year. No, it's not going to be. Because, hey, will the numbers settle because of a combination of rev share, some type of agreement if it comes around at some point, whether that's collective bargaining, Congress, the House case, a combination of all the things, plus like just the market settling just naturally? I mean, maybe. But people are continuing to see the House settlement or, hey, if we could just get a congressional bill as this silver bullet. And I just don't see it, because these numbers have stayed high. They haven't gone down. We don't have a mechanism right now where you can truly, really limit the numbers, even with a clearinghouse for NIL deals and things like that.
Right.
It's kind of, I don't really see the path or the reasoning as to why this is going to calm down.
Well, I don't think it's going to calm down across the board. I still think the Texas and Ohio States and stuff like that will spend high. I think there are going to be a lot of programs that will quickly realize they can't sustain something like this year after year after year.
Yeah, they can't sustain it in that you'll have your programs that can't get up to that cap, right? Yeah. Just take that cap and let's just call it 20 million. You got to find a way to raise that. If it's coming from your athletics department, where does it come from? You raise it, you get it from your revenues. Like most athletic departments, there are very few that even run most of them are in the red. You're very rarely in the black. Even the ones that have big brand names, and and you can do some fancy accounting and do it different ways. But there's not athletic departments out there that are right now making money hand over fist where they're just saying $20 million, no problem. That'll be easy. It's not easy for anybody. And so I think you make a good point, Tyler. Even for those that can get, let's use South Carolina as an example. South Carolina will be able to spend the full revenue sharing cap. Might be painful in some ways, but they'll do it. It won't be easy. But they have to go above and beyond the cap, right? You got to get more creative nowadays to do it, especially if the House case settles and you have to run NIL deals through a clearinghouse and things like that. But when the cap came in, some people thought of the idea of, okay, a revenue sharing cap, awesome. That'll fix the market. It'll limit everything. It's a salary. It's not a salary cap. That's just what schools can pay out, right? So when that number came out, there were two reactions from the college sports world. It was one, how are we going to raise $20 million or find it in our budget to pay it out? And then how can we go above it so that we can beat the next school, right? So not surprised that Texas is one of those schools with all that money that they're already planning on going above and beyond. But I just, maybe it's not $40 million every year, but I do not envision a world right now in the structure that we have where it's just everybody spending $20 million on NIL and that's it. It's not.
The part that's still, and I keep harping on this, how do we know what market value is?
Yeah.
And how are they even spending all that money? Like literally how, not where did it come from, how in the structure we think we're going to see, or did they front load it before this thing goes into effect? Like was that in the article anywhere? Like literally how if everything above the rev share has to be approved, how are they even planning to?
Yeah,
all that money is going to be wrapped up in market deals?
Somehow, I guess so.
How did you promise it?
Well, and that's the thing. So let's say you have an organization. We could start we could start a corporation right now that has to do with, hey, we're going to do deals with players, right? Tyler could give us, whether he's a customer or whatever it may be, he could give us $100,000. But what's key is how you spend it, right? So if I went to, a player on South Carolina's team and said, hey, man, I want to do, or hey, girl, I want to do a deal with you, I can't just say if this all goes through again. The clearinghouse, Darren Heitner, a NIL attorney, has reported maybe within the next couple weeks the Deloitte clearinghouse is going to be up and running. The key is how you spend it, right, and what you're doing with it. I can't just arbitrarily make up a number like you could right now where you said, hey, you're going to come sing at my kid's birthday party. I'm going to give you $50,000. It would have to go through this clearinghouse where they're supposedly going to say, well, let me look and see if we have any research on what a birthday party has actually been,
Sure.
Which opens up a can of worms for lawsuits and things like that. But it's not even about how the money is coming in. It's kind of like how it's spent in terms of brand deals.
Yeah. Again, we'll see how this all unfolds. That's just kind of the glimpse into what one team is at least preparing for when this all goes through here coming up, likely very soon for this upcoming year. And again, these are going to be kind of the numbers we see come out each and every year. And in an unfortunate way, you can almost kind of probably map out who the teams contending at the very end of the season, deep into the college ball playoff, are going to be, usually based off these numbers. And again, Ohio State did have a bump in the road with the loss to Michigan, but they eventually put together a stretch run of dominance through the college ball playoff and won the national championship. And I would imagine the team that wins the national championship probably going to be among one of the bigger spenders usually on a year in, year out basis. Just my hunch here.
Well, they had the best roster money can buy. Credit them for doing it, though. It still counts. And then they went out and did it. So it was a championship or bust year for them, I think, especially after you lose to Michigan. So, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is at this point. That's where we are. Not all the other teams that made the college football playoff, but as we saw, man, even all the teams that made the college football playoff were near the level of the top teams that made the college football playoff. So the teams that really had a chance to win it, did any of them not spend? No, they all spent.
Yep. Again, the reality of college sports, and not going to be going away anytime soon. We'll come back and wrap up the hour. A couple of Gamecock baseball teams going to be honored with an SEC story coming up in a couple weeks. We'll dive into that coming up next. But as we head into this break, speaking of baseball, got 2 family 4-pack tickets to go see the Gamecocks take on the Gators tomorrow night for Game 1 out at Founders Park. Callers number 4 and 5 right now at 803-404-6100. Win yourself that pair of tickets to go see the Gamecocks in action tomorrow night. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the Game.
there's something going on. There's some spirit.
It's bigger than us. Charlie and Baylor. Let's do it for them.
That's when you knew we're meant to win.
Back to back for the Garden in Black.
Let me tell you a story about how two brave boys taught a team to never give up.
Now I'll spread my wings and I will fly.
An SEC storied film, In Spirit, Wednesday, May 14th at 7 p.m. on SEC Network.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris wrapping up Thursday's show. That was the trailer that released yesterday for SEC Story In Spirit, which will follow South Carolina's back-to-back national championships in baseball from 2010 and 2011. Obviously, the story around that team and some of the children at the local hospital that became a big part of that team and kind of the mascots in a way for the success they had. And that airs on May the 14th at 7 o'clock on the SEC Network.
I love the fact that this story will, finally be told on a national level, and also just for everybody here locally will be a awesome just look back and kind of trip down memory lane for kind of what that team was both on the field and off the field. And, special moments there. I'm sure for those two families as well, it will be incredibly emotional to look back on, but pretty special too.
Yeah, I mean, that was just what a special team and year that was. I mean, on and off the field, because of those storylines is probably a terrible word for it. But, you had the involvement, Baylor Teal, no Rob, so you're right, Wes. It will be emotional to look back on that, but also I think probably really cool to look back on too. And, you think about that team, they were just – built different, I think, probably is the term that comes around because, it wasn't like a team that, you watched the team throughout the year, you knew they were really good. I mean, this team was, they ended up counting the NCAA tournament. They were 54-16, They were 28-6 at home. It was a really good team, but it's hard to go win a championship, talking about that first year. And some of the path that they had, some of the things they had to do. You had, the Michael Roth emergence. You had knocking Clemson out in Omaha, beating them 5-1 in the first game, 4-3 in the next game. You had UCLA, who, if y'all remember that broadcast, UCLA was evidently the favorite. I don't know what Vegas said, but on that broadcast, it was all love for UCLA. Right, but Gamecocks go win 7-1. That team was loaded with talent. I mean, UCLA was. They had Garrett Cole. They had, who was our other pitcher, the strange guy with all the weird. You remember him, Wes?
On the spot, no.
No, not on the spot.
Hold on, I'll do some research here.
Yeah, but anyway, they were loaded, but Carolina was too. And it was a combination of guys who were stars plus guys that were just great great college players and glue guys. And they had, it just goes to show that culture and your locker room, your dugout in this case, really, really matters.
Thinking of Trevor Bauer?
Yeah, Trevor Bauer. Yeah. So it was, that was fun. That year was fun. The next year was fun. Next year, even though they came up short, was also fun. What a time it was.
Just to be in a position to potentially go
insane.
3 in a row is insane. And again, baseball is one of those sports that dominance, I say, is even harder because the difference in the top talent and the talent towards the bottom in baseball in general is not as big of a gap as, say, in football or basketball or something along those lines. And again, it's unfortunate it's been over 15 years, almost 15 years since all those things happened, but that is an incredible run that people still talk about, obviously, and we wish South Carolina was still in the position of being that same dominant team, but what they accomplished certainly is something that is not easy to do, and cool to see the team getting highlighted like that, and again, telling the story of these kids that were very important to them and their run for those championships.
Well, and Ray Tanner had us all, I would say, fooled, including that locker room, fooled into thinking that this was not also 2 or actually 3 super talented baseball teams at South Carolina. We're just a bunch of dirtbags. We have to scrape for every piece of dirt on this field. We have to, fight for every base. Okay, that's a good mindset. But look at the number of those guys that found their way into some level, some of them still playing of professional baseball. Like that, those were like credit to Ray. It's kind of like your boy Kirby Smart convincing that locker room that
7-5.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to win 6. People are saying we're going to win six games this year. They played the game like they had less talent, but that was a super talented program at that point. So I'm very curious to see. And Jake Williams, former Gamecock, he was involved with this as well. I'm very excited to see it. By the way, guys, real quick story. So when we pulled out of Firehouse Subs yesterday, I rubbernecking like crazy because I'm like, that's Jerry Spurrier walking down the sidewalk on Forest Drive. Almost ran out of the road because I was like, I'm convinced that is Jerry Spurrier. Did not put 2 and 2 together that her and the HBC were in town for Dawn Staley's statue unveiling.
Yeah, very cool. A lot of star-studded people there yesterday seeing that unveiled. And again, congratulations, Coach Staley. Well-deserved honor there. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here in the game.